Have you ever wondered what happens to a body after death? What if I tell you that sometimes what reaches the table of an embalmer isn't it completely dead? Today you will hear real reports from professionals who deal with death every day. But what they faced defies all logic. If you have the courage, stay until the end. But a warning, some bodies don't want rest, and they know who touched them. My name is Michael. I work as an embalmer in Phoenix, Arizona. I've seen it all. Natural deaths, terrible accidents, violence, abandonment. But there was one night, a single night, that completely changed my view of death. It was a silent night. I was finishing the preparation of an elderly lady when I received a call from the morgue. A 24-year-old named Andrew had died in a highway accident. No close relatives, only a cousin who authorized the transfer. It was almost 10 at night, and even though I was tired, I accepted the job. It's part of it. We get used to fatigue. When the body arrived, it was still covered in dust and dried blood. The cuts on his face and arms were deep, but something caught my attention immediately. The body was too cold, more than usual, even coming from the cold room. Ignored. I turned on the lights in the room and started the procedure. It was then that I saw something that made me stop. Dried tear marks on the corpse's face. I thought it was sweat or residue from the accident, but even after cleaning, they were still there, as if he had cried. Shortly before he died, Engoli secco, continue, until the environment has changed. The temperature of the room dropped dramatically. My breath was visible. I checked the thermostat. Nothing unusual. It was then that I heard a sound. OCD, a muffled noise. Coming from the corner of the room, Andrew's coffin was vibrating. I approached slowly. Maybe it was the material settling, but when I touched the lid, I felt something moving inside. I took a deep breath. I lifted the lid. Andrew was there, lifeless, as before. But now, fresh tears flowed from his eyes. My hands began to tremble. I tried to record with my cell phone, but the screen went completely black. Then, the door of the room slammed violently. I tried to open it. It was locked. A sound made me turn back to the coffin. Andrew, now with his arms at his sides and eyes open, glassware, soulless. But looking straight at I felt that he was following me with his gaze. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. The lights flashed. The room was freezing. I felt someone behind me. But when I turned around, nobody. When I looked at the coffin again, it was empty. Andrew, it was gone. The next day I searched the morgue. No one with that name had been registered. No input, no paperwork, nothing. To this day, when I prepare a body, I look into the eyes, just to be sure that they will be closed. 2. My name. I'll keep it a secret. I'm a mortuary makeup artist in Chicago. I have been working in funeral homes for over 10 years, but after that night, I was never able to sleep peacefully again. Her name was Natalie. She died alone in her apartment. Suicide, hanged with a belt. It took them days to find her. The decomposition had already begun. When they put her on the table, the smell was unbearable. But what really bothered me was something else. She had her eyes open, glassware, vague, but open, as if he were watching me. My colleague joked, "She's judging you." laughed, nervously. I started to clean it, as I always do, but the more I took care of her face, the more intense his expression became, almost as if she reacted. It was then that, when applying foundation to the face, she blinked. I froze. I dropped the brush. I knocked everything down. I convinced myself that it was a muscle reflex, but then his eyes were fixed on mine. Suddenly, a dull sound coming from the refrigerator of the bodies, as if something was trying to get out. Nothing abnormal, but the atmosphere became heavy. The room looked hooray. While applying the lipstick, her head turned slightly to the side, as if he wanted to tell me something. Over the next few nights, I began to dream about her. Sitting at the table, makeup, staring at me, and murmuring the same phrase, "Why don't you let me rest?" 3. It was the body of a 39-year-old man, victim of extreme aggression, face completely disfigured. I was given the mission to reconstruct the face. I used preserved skin grafts, an old technique. I sewed each piece carefully, following the reference photos. But when I finished, something was wrong. The bone structure did not match. The eyes were very close, the nose too thin. It was as if I had put on someone else's skin. The lights began to flicker. Everything went dark for seconds, and when the light came back, the body was sitting, with a smile sewn on his face. The skin began to unstick, running down her face, and a whisper rang out, "That's not my skin." 4. It was a 35-year-old woman, death without explanation. But the strangest thing was the body, hot, wet. As if it were alive. I started preparing it normally, but when I touched her skin, I felt a pulse, yes, a beat. She turned her head slowly, and he stared at me. I called colleagues. They saw nothing, but when I looked again, my name was written on her skin, not with paint, but in relief, like old scars that only I could see. Since that day, she has followed me, in dreams, in the mirrors, in my own skin. 5. It was a body like few others. You. Man in his early 40s, found dead at home, surrounded by candles and symbols. When I took off the sheet, I was paralyzed. The body was covered with inscriptions, geometric symbols, inverted cross, perfect lines. Some looked freshly cut, others scarred, as if he had marked himself for years. During preparation, the smell changed from the chemical for sulfur, and the room was getting cold, too. The next morning, I returned to the site. The coffin was open, the body on the ground, and the symbols were different, darker, more complex. His aunt, present at the wake, told me something that echoes to this day. He didn't want to rest, and it won't let you. Since then, the smell of sulfur has haunted me. Symbols appear in my dreams, and fear became part of my routine. Who works with death? Learn to live with silence, but some silences scream, some bodies. They do not accept to leave, and they leave traces on the skin, in the eyes, in the soul of those who touch them. If you've come this far, it's because you have the courage. So leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell, because here, stories never rest. And tell me in the comments, which of these stories gave you goosebumps the most? Would you have the courage to work in a morgue after that? See you next time. And remember, not all dead. It is really dead.